Meet Serena, your virtual companion for emotional support. The ultimate safe space to discuss your thoughts, your fears, and the ups and downs of daily life. Start your free trial today at serena.chat.
My f36 fiancé's M45 weird relationship with his coworker, f22. I finally have the guts to write this since I don't find this normal at all anymore. My fiancé Ben and I are in a long-distance relationship for 2 years now. We visit each other every weekend and plan on moving in together once I finish my project, which takes 2 more years. We are financially well put off and hope to retire soon to travel around the world. I love him so much and we've spoken already about having children. Ben announced to me a couple of months ago that this new girl Maxine started at his job. He didn't elaborate much further on it, just that she was really young. Fast forward, he starts telling me that she got along with his department and they even take lunch breaks together. I didn't like the way he started talking about her. He called her cute, sassy, energetic and all that. When I asked him why he thought she was cute, he showed me a picture of her that he took of her while she posed next to his colleagues. Turns out she's biracial, Asian, white. And he thought of her like our child. I'm 100% Asian, he's 100% white. I told him immediately that I found this weird that he referred to her that way and asked him to distance himself a bit more from her. He got a bit defensive but then agreed to it. Everything seemed great after that. He would only mention her if she was part of a joke or if she had to work with him that day. After a couple of weeks, Ben told me he wouldn't be able to make it at my state Friday night and would take the earliest flight on Saturday to see me. I let him know that it was no problem and wished him a good night. Saturday came and when I asked him about Friday night, he told me that Maxine had invited him and 2 other of his colleagues to her appartement for drinks and dinner. Ben didn't seem to understand why I got mad at him for it since he wasn't alone with her. I know it's not okay to snoop in each other's phone, but I was so over it with this Maxine thing that I searched for potential conversations he had with her outside of work. I locked myself up in the bathroom with his phone while he went to sleep and saw that he did have a conversation with her. First few conversations were short and basic, and I noticed how she started getting more and more flirtatious with him. He would ignore the flirtatious texts. At one point, I felt my heart sink. She confessed her crush towards him and it went like this. What a surprise. To be honest with you, you are a really fun and pretty girl, Maxine, but I'm really committed to my name. I am really flattered though OMG, I didn't knew you guys were that serious with one another. I thought you guys were in an FWB type of thing. I wouldn't have said anything if I knew you guys were serious. So sorry. Weirdly enough the conversation watered a bit down and normal shorter conversations appeared again. I couldn't understand what I was feeling. I felt in some way betrayed that he made it appear to others that we weren't that serious with each other but then again stayed loyal towards me after this young girl made advances on him. I decided to give it some thought and have some sleep over it since my mind was racing. The next morning I confronted Ben about it and he admitted that he saw that she had a bit of a crush on him but he wouldn't do anything to her since he could have been her father. He tried distancing himself but said that she'd confront him about it and be around him even more. The way he spoke about her made me believe that he was talking about a little kid instead of a grown woman. I just let it be since he assured me nothing will ever happen between him and her. Sunday evening, we were eating out and once the bill came, he used another credit card instead of his usual one. I asked him jokingly if he forgot the other one at home and he told me that he gave it to Maxine. I was perplexed to what he said and asked him why. He told me that he felt bad for her that she only had 2 black pairs of pants and 1 dress shirt for work so he told her to use the last $500 on his card to buy herself some clothes. I couldn't believe my ears and stayed quiet until we got home. He didn't seem to grasp how weird and unprofessional it was of him to give that to a coworker. It's true that the amount of money he gave her wasn't a lot for him but it's still highly inappropriate. After a massive fight, I told him I wasn't planning on coming to his place next weekend and have to rethink our relationship. I feel so numb right now. I don't know what to think about it all. The fact that he wants to parent this girl while knowing she has a crush on him makes me uneasy. He has been calling me endlessly and sending me gifts but I just can't grasp the thought of this all. Is this worth breaking up over? He has been such an amazing partner to me and has showed me so many times that he wants to spend the rest of his life with me and loves me. Too long did not read. My fiancé sees his coworker as his daughter even though she has a crush on him and has an unprofessional relationship with her. Edit. I tried reading the comments without bursting into tears, so excuse my absence from the thread. I would like to add that Ben might be on the spectrum. He doesn't believe it and doesn't want to get diagnosed for it, but from what I noticed, I believe he is. He doesn't get hints, has a certain pattern he follows throughout his weekdays. People have to tell him explicitly what they expect from him and how they feel about him. He has one childhood friend and his 2 closest colleagues to which he confines things to. Combined with the fact that he's an only child with absent parents, I also believe that he's so on to Maxine is because they share the same interest in music, since this was his only getaway as a child. I feel in a way so bad that I would ruin this for him since I have lots of girlfriends to be close with. I believe he genuinely doesn't see the harm in this all since he already told me that he isn't attracted to her and wouldn't drop everything he has built with me for a fling, if that would happen. Right now I told him to leave me alone for a while and ended the conversation with, no normal adult has this type of relationship with someone much younger without it being perverted. He gave her his credit card? That's a dealbreaker for me. In my experience, men don't just give acquaintances their credit card. Nothing about this sits right. I'd seriously reconsider the relationship. He sounds more like a sugar daddy. That whole dynamic is weird. Sugar daddy much? I agree, sounds like a sugar daddy. I, 33F. Want another child. My husband, 36M, doesn't. How can I get past this? Actual final edit. I am not trying to convince my husband of having one, nor would I. The info below is just backstory and me explaining why I am struggling with this. I'm hoping to find people who can relate to what I'm feeling, which is to give up completely the wish to have another child. I ain't gonna force anyone into anything. I love and want to be with my husband, he doesn't want another and I do, that's the long and short of it. I, 33F, and my husband, 36M, have been together for 16 years, married for 8. We have a 14-year-old. I love him and our family very much. There's no real problems to speak of, I just need advice. Lately, I have been brooding for another child. The problem is that my husband doesn't. Having a child so young meant our path was difficult, we've worked hard to get to where we are. Our 20s weren't easy, both relationship-wise and financially. We're in the UK. But we bought our first home last year. Our child goes to private school. Our relationship is the strongest it's ever been. I was a very anxious mum, and when my husband wanted another, I wasn't ready. Whilst I know parenting is hard on both parents, being pregnant and breastfeeding is a whole other ball game in my opinion. Then there was the stress of intrusive thoughts of our child being injured or killed. So I said I couldn't and to wait until we had our lives in order to revisit it. I especially want to offer another child what we've provided to ours. Our child will finish school in July 2025, as well as our mortgage fixed-term deal. And whilst I know I can't properly plan these things, I think we could start trying closer to then because at the moment, we wouldn't be able to afford my going on maternity leave. My husband says he will be 38 then and that even now at 36, it's a lot to start again. He sees my parents who had my youngest sibling at the same age and has a glimpse of the future of being 52 and parents to a teenager. He's happy and content with the life we have, and especially the child we have, which of course, I am too. That kid is my whole world. We should have done it when we were younger. And that we have had a lot of sacrifices, we can enjoy our time and be a bit wild where we, especially me, didn't get to. Not that there are any regrets at all. I don't know how big a deal this is for me. How can I know if I'll regret not doing it, right? And I still feel young. 33 is not old. 35 isn't either. But I can't help feeling sad that because I wasn't ready mentally and our relationship was rocky in our 20s, the choice has been taken from me. I've had dreams of having another for over 10 years and it's just hard for me to accept. But I wouldn't give up having my husband for this either. That's out of the question. It's not on my mind 24/7, but when I see children, I imagine the child I want to have but can't have. And our child, not having a sibling is so alien to me. I come from a huge family. My husband's family is dwarfed by it. Has anyone ever had this? How do you deal with it? Too long did not read. My husband doesn't want another child and I do. I don't know how big a deal this is. We have one child together. Edit. I love kids and caretaking is a part of who I am. I am the eldest of 4 and take an active part in all their lives. Babysat them when growing up, etc. I have so many cousins. My parents are one of 11 siblings each. So have been surrounded by family and children my whole life. My husband hasn't, his side are very small and he doesn't have much a relationship with his brother. I would foster or adopt, but my husband is more against this. He says we may as well have another child, assuming we can and healthily. I know nothing is guaranteed. Edit 2. There seems to be an assumption that I would use my older sibling as a babysitter. I'm not saying it won't happen, but not if my child doesn't feel the desire. I haven't raised them this way so far and have always felt that my children are my responsibility. And especially with how I was raised myself. We raise our child with love and respect. We have talked about it and our child is happy with whatever decision is made, no preferences either way. But of course, they can't truly imagine it, but their happiness is our priority. Final edit. When we discussed having another child about 8 years ago, it wasn't that I said no forever. We still had bad debt and I had to change careers to get to where we are now. We were renting and saving up for a house, we weren't even driving yet. Our lives have improved dramatically, really. But I never took it off the table, I just asked for more time. I didn't realize there would be an expiration date. So last year, when I said, "Babe, shall we revisit having another child now that we've got the house, the car and no bad debts, I'm healthy, you're healthy, blah blah blah," I did not expect that he would say no completely. We then had our big conversation, and he has kindly agreed to give what I've said a lot of thought and vice versa. We're gonna talk more soon, so I thought I'd ask other parents if they've had the same conversations and how they've dealt with it. My husband wanted another one at the time, but I didn't. Rough quote. Okay, so not you want one and he doesn't. Sounds like he respected your wishes. Maybe you should do the same now that the roles are reversed. You had the opportunity, said no. Now he says no and you want your cake and to eat it too. Maybe adoption? At the end, if that day it's a mutual decision and sounds like you had your chance and skipped it and now you changed your mind. You want another child and your husband doesn't, so you don't have another child. Having children are one of the few uncompromisable decisions in a marriage. Now, if you want another child more than your current marriage, then that's another decision entirely. Why was this conversation not revisited sooner? I want to point out that it's very unlikely that your 16-year-old will kindle a relationship with a new sibling. I understand your feelings, and I would talk some more to your husband about how he processed his own when he was shot down for kids. Volunteer at a daycare or in the nursery of a hospital, and get a dog. Here's the thing, he has said no and you have said you prioritize him over more kids. You need to get on board with the new plan. Take some time and grieve what might have been. Life rarely turns out the way we expect it to, and this is one of those things. You wanted more kids, planned on it for some time in the future, but ultimately timing didn't work out. Once you have spent some time, maybe even a couple of therapy sessions, putting this idea down, chose what you are going to do instead. Do you want to travel? Ramp up working for a couple years to retire earlier? Is there a hobby you've put off that you want to get into? Any organization you want to volunteer for? Your life is evolving, but it can be fun and exciting if you let it. 28 male, I'm thinking of divorcing my wife, 29 of 4 years. Long read, sorry. Some background. I met my wife in college when I was 18. It was like a rom-com when the main character lays eyes on the love interest for the first time. I fell for her hard then and there. 2 months later, I asked her out, and she said yes. Our relationship progressed to being married now. While we were dating, I learned of her sister, Cass. Cass had been her friend since they were like 3 months old. Both of their moms are best friends that got pregnant within about 2 months of each other. At the time, her Cass was studying abroad and was out of the country. I knew about her, and my wife talked about her all the time. But, 2.5 years into our relationship is when I met her face to face for the first time. She immediately became one of my least favorite people. She is mean, judgmental, self-centered, and has a superiority complex, all my opinions. If the attention wasn't on her, she would make it about her. If you did something, she did it better or easier, it was easier for her. I was nice to her and held my tongue, and kept my opinions to myself. She was here for 2 weeks, then she had to go back. I noticed a change in my wife during those 2 weeks. She looked and acted like she was Cass's personal servant and was just acting weird. I thought it was just her seeing her sister again after a long time. After she left, my wife went back to being herself again. Cass was very vocal when I proposed to my wife about how wrong I was for her. How I wasn't good enough, the ring was small, the ring wasn't what she, Cass, would have wanted. She then made a social media post about me that she ended up deleting 30 minutes later. My wife told her to, but by that time, I saw it and saved it. It was disturbing. We scheduled our wedding, and when we got about 3 months away, my wife postponed it due to an issue with the venue. We got married 6 months later. Every time Cass is around, I don't recognize my wife. I have brought this up, but it always gets brushed aside, or I am ghost hunting, jealous of my wife paying attention to anyone but me. All of this led up to about a month ago. I used to ride a motorcycle everywhere. I was involved in an accident where a truck pulled out directly in front of me. There was dash footage. I flew in the air, flipped several times, and ended up about 100 feet from the truck. Injuries include Grade 2 concussion, broken collarbone and wrist, dislocated shoulder, bruised ribs, and road rash on my arm. I always have pants, a vest and helmet, so it could have been worse. I am out of work for the time being, so I have plenty of time to think, listen, and watch. Cass moved back to the States last year and now lives an hour away. She came to stay with us while my wife was going through a tough time. In the time she has been here, 2 weeks. She has done nothing but complain and boss my wife around. She acts like she owns my house and everything in it. If I ask for any help, I get accused of being a misogynist, narcissistic womanizer by Cass. Every time I say something, tears start flowing, and I get told what a terrible husband I am. I can't have 2 seconds alone with my wife. Also, in this time, I learned a few things. 1. She actively encourages my wife to go out with her and meet cute guys, go on double dates, without me, and more. Wife always declines. 2. Cass has cheated on all of her past relationships and sees no problems with it. She is a woman who deserves to be worshipped. But that just means she is easy. 3. Said marriage is barbaric in practice of a man owning a woman and suppressing a woman's natural need for multiple sexual partners. 4. At one point, my wife and her had exploratory relationships, before me and can confirm nothing since. 5. The tipping point for me. Our wedding wasn't postponed due to the venue. It was because of Cass. She didn't want our wedding to be a spring wedding. She looked better in a fall setting, and the colors worked for her better anyway. I'm being ignored, disrespected, and talked down to in my own house. I don't know if it is the head injury, painkillers, or something else, but I'm about to say F it and probably ruin 2 relationships in a hail word vomit. How can I get the message to my wife that I can't stand Cass and that she needs to go? That the woman I love is not the woman I see in front of me. I want my wife back, not this shell of a woman who doesn't see her own self-worth. I feel like a drastic measure has to be made for my voice to be heard. How can I tell my wife I need her to be herself? How can I save the relationship? Is the relationship salvageable? TLDR. Wife's best friend is ruining my relationship with my wife. Nothing I say or do works. I'm always the bad guy. Have your wife read this post. Cass is clearly a manipulative narcissist and your wife is her codependent victim. They've probably had that dynamic forever. You'll always lose. Best get a divorce and save what's left of your sanity. Have either of your families and other friends noticed her behavior around her? It may take a village to get her to see the light. Your wife sees your view as your opinion alone, but if confronted as a group she will be forced to explain her denial. If this doesn't work, then you'll have to forbid Cass from your life and tell your wife she's no longer welcomed in your house. There's no talking about this delicately. Tell her exactly as you've stated it here. If it doesn't wake her up, serve divorce papers. You have the right to kick Cass out as well. Draw a hard boundary. She's no longer welcome in your house. I think I agree with the title of your post. How do I, 31F, get my wife, 30F, to understand that I don't want to have a kid? My wife and I just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. We've discussed having kids together before and I've told her on multiple occasions, even before we got married, that I'm just not interested in having kids. I've known this since I was a kid myself. She has a 9-year-old son with low-functioning autism and to be completely honest, he's more than enough to me. I have never felt like I've had a motherly bone in my body. My wife has made the comeback when I say this that I'm good at taking care of my niece and nephew and good with her son. But in my opinion, those things don't make a good parent. I'm a little selfish with my own time. I like having my alone time on occasion and being able to do whatever I want to do. Having a stepson has hindered me from that a little bit, and I think having another kid will ruin any chance of what little self-freedom I have left. That sounds bad, but it's the only way I can describe it. I don't mind having kids around. But the thought of having a baby and raising one forever scares the crap out of me, and it's nothing I'm interested in. I have voiced this to my wife. I've told her how I felt, and what bothered me the most is her saying, "So I just can't have a baby then because you don't want one?" And I said, "Am I supposed to be miserable and let us have a baby when I don't want one? Then that makes for a miserable kid and wife. I'm just not sure how we compromise here." We had this conversation again yesterday, and I've just had mixed emotions toward her since. I still love her, obviously. But I'm starting to second-guess our marriage. I don't want to hold her back from having another child if that's something she really wants in life. Part of me thinks she wants a redo because she had a kid young and with someone she now hates, and she's told me she wants the experience of having a baby with someone she loves. But I know in my whole heart that I just can't give her that. I also feel like she's being extremely selfish with the comment she made. And I also feel like I'm being the selfish one by holding her back. It's just all very confusing. I'm sure couples deal with this all the time, so I know I'm not alone in this situation. It's just hard when you don't want to give your spouse everything they want and desire when that's what you said in your vows. I want more than anything for her to be happy and fulfilled in this life. But I know a baby is something I just don't want. Oof, I'm so sorry here. The simple fact is you're fundamentally incompatible if she wants kids and you don't. It's not a bad thing, it's not like either of you are being unreasonable or selfish. Kids are just one of those things that both partners need to agree wholeheartedly on. I think you should ask her to sit down this weekend and talk seriously. Schedule a time so you both are mentally prepared and know it's coming. And then just say frankly you don't want more children. You want more than anything for her to be happy and fulfilled, but this isn't the path you want. And then see what she says and go from there. Odds are there will be a lot of tears and hurt, and it won't be a one-time conversation. But it's not an area there is a compromise path on. You can't compromise on children. She knew where you stood and is now trying to make you change your mind. That's not okay. You both deserve the lives you both want. Ultimately, I think you should divorce. You are incompatible and shouldn't have gotten married, to be honest. It's probably not what you want to hear, but she already has a kid. You don't want kids. You shouldn't be together. We had this conversation again yesterday. Stop having the conversation. We have discussed this. My stance has not changed and will not change. The more you discuss it and the more you defend yourself, the more it reinforces her biases. The less you say, the better. That should have been discussed before you two got married. You two are fundamentally incompatible because kids are a major make it or break it issue for relationships.